This is the Team Objection podcast for March 26th, 2020, episode 431. As an early programming note, there will be no show next week. Originally, we were going to have some time in Phoenix. I had rented a house, and we were going to do a bunch of activities. All of that, of course, has gone right out the window with the spread of the coronavirus. So we could have stayed here and done a show, but I actually think it's about time for a week off anyways. It's been a few months, and I'm tired.
I wonder what the alternate universe, how this would have gone, our whole vacation, you know?
I was
We would
excited
have
about
gone
it.
a couple games. Maybe it would have gone terrible. Maybe in the alternate universe, in the greater multiverse, Dave would have like died or something.
Why me?
I don't know.
I
Why
have
are
the
you
least
crawling through the
risk here.
garage door when I hit close? You'll be like that scene in Scream where your like back gets broken on the garage thing because I lift it while you're. Who am I kidding? The garage doors couldn't lift you.
Ah, there it is.
Because your beard is so thick and heavy.
It
Because
is
you're
true.
because you're too handsome.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Garage would be
is-
like, nah, I can't kill this guy.
It's the
too sexy.
multiverse. What do you want? It's not me.
Anything is possible.
Yeah.
There is a multiverse version out there where somebody thinks Dave is classically attractive right now. So it exists. We know this to be true somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, in this universe, there's at least one person that thinks I'm attractive right now.
That doesn't count.
Okay. Just saying. I mean, there is.
She promised to cherish you no matter what. It was part of the vows.
It's actually her. This is actually her fault. Like, I would shave this if it was fully my choice.
Yeah, it's gotten a little too much. Would
It
you at
has.
least have trimmed it?
Oh yeah. Oh
Okay.
yeah.
I say I don't know about full shave, but
Your hair on your head, while handsome, looks like an anime villain's haircut.
I'm actually running dangerously low on hair gel at the moment. So after I took a shower last time, since I'm working from home, I didn't put any hair gel in. So it's just kind of like whoosh.
What's that called? The front. There's a word for it.
No.
You always see it like anime characters have that. It's like a thing on the front of their head. There's a word for it. You have it.
I didn't know that. It's just how my hair naturally does it because I have no gel or anything in this hair right now.
There are some guys, douchey guys, but some guys who would kill to have that ability that you just have naturally.
I hate my hair unstyled. So
Pompadour.
Pompadour. That's it. That's it.
Because you know how I thought of it? Yu Yu Hakusho.
Yeah, exactly.
Perhaps the most prominent.
Kuwabara.
Bouffant is another hairstyle, but it's not Dave's.
Yeah.
But we're talking about anime, and I can talk about one anime pretty much. One.
It's finally happened, Dave. For the preamble, really quick, I want to remind them, we did a Persona 5 review with Chris and Jason, because at the time they were the only ones that beat it. And then I joined, 3 hours long.
Yep.
And then we did another one that was like at least an hour when I joined
Something like
Chris
that.
and
Yeah.
Jason.
Might have been. Or
I think
Michaela.
it was just you two. It was just the two of you did it.
Now
Yeah.
Dave can finally join the ranks of Persona 5 review just in time for Royal.
Yeah, Royal's coming out next week. We're not having a show next week, so clearly we know what your time, America, should be spent on.
That's true.
Persona 5, as in we're going to do 5 reviews of this goddamn game by the time all is said and done.
Yeah, seriously, we have 4 locked in.
Yep.
Right as of right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, Dave.
Mhm.
Well, I was going to say go ahead and dive in, but we had a structure that I think
I
we
like
should
that.
replicate for you.
Mhm.
I don't exactly remember what it was, but I know one of them was characters.
Starting with confidants.
I remember what it was. I pulled it up.
Oh,
yeah.
Chris has it.
I lied. I did not remember, so I went and pulled it
Chris
up.
is letting me make a fool out of myself. He had it pulled up right in front of him the whole
I
time.
didn't want to cut you off. You know, you were heading in head first. I was like, all right, let it rock.
Yeah.
He's got it.
So, yeah, we won't do the full version of this because we talked about every single party member and confidant. And that's not going to be something we have time for right now. But we'll talk about the ones Dave cared about.
Mhm.
I should send him that same link. Shit, I can't do that right now without alt-tabbing. It's fine. We'll figure something out. I'll
So,
put it in the
Dave,
planner, Dave.
Well, let's start with your party, Dave.
Yeah, the main party I ran with in that was obviously the main character because you had to. And I ran with Makoto because I'm going to sell this right now. Makoto is Bae. She's like the best.
She was the best.
And I wrote Makoto and main character and Morgana mostly.
That's an interesting third person.
Yeah.
You're probably the only person in the world who ran with Morgana.
And, I didn't necessarily like it. He was the one, I keep calling her she because her voice sounds so feminine, I think. But
it is a female voice.
I know, that's why. So he was the one that I really swapped out the most. He and Anne were a little bit on the edges. Like I would swap in Ryuji or Yusuke every once in a while. But I mean, Makoto and the main character were like all the time. They were the only ones in there all the time. And I think Makoto just had this breadth of talent where she was a pretty heavy hitter, but also had healing magic. And I'm like, yep, I'm sold.
Yeah. Yeah, I had Makoto, Anne, and Ryuji.
Yeah.
That's it. I don't even know how the other characters were. Maybe they were good and I missed out. I don't know because they were never in.
Yusuke had his moments. I think the baton pass power up thing was pretty helpful. He was the only one with ice power, which helped in certain dungeons. But
and high counter.
And high counter, yeah. But overall, like outside of that, I couldn't really see myself using anybody else. It was just kind of like I had my 4 and I was pretty good with that.
That's sort of the problem with all 3 of the Persona games for me, is that I've liked early characters and have not given later characters much of a chance. Like everybody loves Naoto from 4, which is a reference that's lost on Dave, but Naoto is basically the same as Haru, which is to say joins way late. And for some people, it's like, oh yeah, we're going to jump right on that. And I'm like, I'm already used to my crew. They're already like max level confidants, so they have all their tricks and stuff. So it's like, for me, it's a tough sell. If people like that stuff, that's fine. But I'm a loyalist, so you give me good party members early, they're probably going to get rocked the whole game.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I felt bad. I know it's been talked to death. Like Haru, I would have loved to use more, but it's like I couldn't even have the time to give her the baton pass ability, much less.
I mean,
anything.
That's what Chris was just saying. Yeah, same thing with Naoto and Haru and
Mitsuru from 3.
Yeah.
So I wish, and maybe I'm alone on this, but I kind of wish that Futaba would have been more of a active party member instead of a passive party member. But I liked the idea that she would like come in every once in a while and help you out. So I'm kind of torn on that one. I actually would have preferred a more active party member.
That's interesting, and this is why this is kind of fun for me, is because as a series newcomer, it's like there is usually somebody in that spot, kind of like the overseer, the guide, whatever, who kind of chimes in on occasion but isn't a party member. Like 3 and 4 both have that as well. But I definitely have seen the same sentiment elsewhere, and I get the feeling she's going to have a little bit more to do in Royal.
Yeah, it was just, and again, like this is the first Persona game I've ever played, so I'm not familiar with some of the backstory and some of the probably the Easter eggs and little hints that they've sprinkled in the game that appeals to the hardcore fans. But like I remember getting Futaba and being like, okay, I'm going to put her in my party. Why wouldn't it let me put her in my party? Like, I want to do this. Why is she not in my party?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I actually liked it because I was like, oh no, how do I fit her in the party? And then it's like, I don't have to because she's there. She's already automatically kind of part of the party. So it saved me some spots. And so I liked it. But I would like it if she had more to do. Maybe not even necessarily an active party member, but present more often. I feel like Rise was, and Futaba wasn't as much, but that could just be bad memory.
I would have made me happier, I think, if I could have directed her more of like, I want this status buff or more SP, or if like I could have at least directed her away instead of just being like, oh, totally random. I mean, whatever she feels like. I don't know for sure if there was some AI built in to kind of take your situation into account when she gives you those status buffs, but it was just kind of like sometimes I'd be near the end of a fight and she'd pop in with like, all right, here's some accuracy and evasion. I'm like, don't need that. I'm cool.
Yeah, there has to be some AI built into it because like she'll pick up on when you're lower on SP and she won't use that ability if you're full and stuff like that. But I'm not sure because a lot of the buffs did seem somewhat random.
Yeah. So, I mean, I liked them. It helped like when I'm sitting there and all of a sudden you give me attack up. I'm like, cool. I needed that. I appreciate that, especially late game in some of the palaces. But
that's actually an interesting idea is like if you can develop her trajectory a little more on like maybe what she's even learning to begin with. How she uses it, things like that. Yeah. I mean, you develop some of it with the confidant, but it's not the same.
Yeah, because like with your regular party members, you get to decide, all right, well, these are the 8 abilities they're rocking, whether it's passives or buffs or attacks or spells or whatever. And in her case, it's like, yeah, she gets her abilities, but you never have to choose because she only gets a few. And they're basically just like, you get back HP and SP sometimes. And her in-battle ones, which would be nice to kind of shape and mold, you don't really have any say over.
Yeah.
But she was still key for 3 things for me. 1, the keep you from dying once a fight. 2, the you accidentally fucked up and got surrounded, but she turns it around, now you're surrounding them.
Yeah.
And 3, the here's the whole map of this floor at once in Mementos.
Oh god, that did save me in some of the later things because I kind of put off some of my Memento stuff till the end, and it was like, okay, I'm gonna go in and do 4 different, fights that I need to do, 4 different targets, and all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I'm getting to this floor. She just mapped the whole floor. All right, next floor. Like immediately, I didn't have to go through it. I didn't have to fight anybody. It was just made it so much faster.
Yeah.
So, as far as confidants, I would kind of fight through the ones that I didn't touch at all. I didn't touch the reporter because didn't care about that storyline. I didn't care about my security level in a palace because I snuck around everywhere. So I don't really understand why I would care about that one bit.
Yep.
The gun shop guy made no sense to me why I would ever spend 2 seconds with him except to buy weapons because he's a jerk and was in some really shady shit. So
I also did not do the gun guy.
Same. And you don't need to upgrade the guns that badly. Like, it's fine later in the game when you have some extra money to do it with, but like you really just use those to exploit weaknesses. You're not using them regularly.
Yeah.
I don't think I bought a new gun until like December or like mid-November.
Yep.
So it's like, oh yeah, I have guns, because the only time I ever used a gun was when there was a weakness to the gun. So I didn't care if it hit for 5 damage. It knocked him over. Cool.
Yep.
That's an all-out attack.
And by the time you can actually afford to put some money into it as a last-ditch resort, you have like personas that can do gun now.
Yeah, exactly.
And or Haru. So like you don't need it anymore.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I didn't put much time into the get smoked kid either. So
The arcade kid?
That's what he is to me. Yeah, arcade kid, because he had the get smoked hat, so he's just get smoked to me.
I did the arcade kid. I feel like he was pretty good stuff.
I think I got in there a little late for him, and then was too focused on upping people like Futaba or upping people like Hifumi, because they were important to me.
See, I would really, in Royal, especially with the extra time, I want to try to max out everyone. And without a guide, because that takes the fun out of it. And I was actually pretty close in one, but like the politician, he goes away if you don't do it fast enough.
Yep.
I got to level 9 with him, and I was pissed off that I didn't get to 10.
Yep.
And it makes sense given the story's perspective. Like, you're not supposed to be out and about in the streets. You don't want to be seen, and you don't want to sign up for him in public. So I get it, but it sucks if you haven't finished him. There's no doubt about that.
Really quickly, the ones that I kind of went halfway through, Yusuke, I didn't really even use the card system until very late in the game. So I was like, oh yeah, this could be helpful, but too late.
Yeah, I hoarded them for way too long.
And he creeped me the hell out in the beginning. Like, I know he's an artist and he's kind of, just a little off, but man, he just creeped me the fuck out.
Yeah.
He just wants to draw on nude, okay?
I mean, no, he didn't, but it wasn't on. It was, he just wanted to draw people nude. Like, you have the one scene where you're in the church with him and you're like, should I strip? He's like, yes, you should.
Yeah. Yep.
Let's see. Ryuji, I got to like level 8 with him because
I can't believe you.
He drove me so nuts.
I love him so much.
But if he had any redemption arc, up until literally the last point in the game, he's screaming at the bad guys, be like, hey, we're the Phantom Thieves, you don't want to fuck with us. It's like, Ryuji, shut up. Like, you're gonna get us killed.
It consistently gets the group in trouble.
Yes,
and it's like,
exactly.
if he had just toned it down a little bit, I don't expect him to be a quiet church boy. But like, maybe not every single time we're in a dire situation do you have to instigate something. Maybe like once as a sign of character growth. Because I like the kid too. It was just like, man, I wish he had learned literally anything.
Yeah, I like his spunk. Like, I like how he was like all for it. He was the most enthusiastic member of the party for like, he did it for righteous reasons. But like, dude, shut up, learn some tact.
And you need his attitude and that enthusiasm you mentioned. Like, it's a character trait the group needs. It's just occasionally they don't need it.
And pretty much I got a lot of maxed out people. I maxed out the doctor because of the SP regen item. I needed that. There was no other way I could go about that, so I maxed her out. But I didn't romance her, even though she's the type you date, not marry, I'd say.
I think that's fair. Like, she has a caring side, but let's be honest, she's just a good lay.
Oh yeah, she'd be fantastic.
There's a phrase I'm saying on this podcast. Deal with that.
I mean, she's got a freaky side. She wears a spider dress with those heels, like.
But you have to be faithful to Makoto.
Absolutely. But Makoto is it.
Yeah, I won't do multiple girlfriends unless there's no consequences. Yeah. That also sounds like a terrible sentence, but once again, this is where we are right now.
I did the Fortune Chihaya. I think is how you pronounce it. I couldn't remember.
Oh, yeah.
I maxed her out, but although it took me forever to actually get in there, because I'm like, I'm not paying 100,000 yen for this stupid ball that breaks the second you buy it. But thanks to your guys edging me along on that one, I dove in on it, and she was helpful in finishing and helping max a lot of people with some of her abilities.
Well, she's great, and the teacher.
I didn't do the teacher much at all. I got maybe 4 or 5 with her because up until a certain point, I didn't understand that you need enough points to actually progress them. I thought it was just time based in order to progress their confidants. So I was like, oh, it says she's not available to upgrade, so I won't meet her. And then by the time I was like August or September, I'm like, oh, you need to answer the questions right. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, or hang out with him on the side, or in your case, then the fortune teller becomes big for that.
The fortune teller's huge for that. Yeah.
Futaba, I maxed out because of the final guard. But I had no desire to romance her whatsoever. She's a little kid sister to me.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you,
no
Dave.
desire.
I hope Jason's freaking listening.
I did listen to part of your first review where Jason was like just drooling over her. I'm like, she's like 13. Calm down, dude.
We do not waifu shame around here.
It's fair. I mean, you can like what you like, but like she's a shut-in that like comes out of her shell a little bit, which is great. I'm glad that we were able to have that story arc with her, and she was like, but she's also still really fucking weird even after she breaks out of her shell.
Just dynamic wise, like I got that vibe, like from the way we would interact together. To me, it wasn't romantic. It was like she was a kid sister. Speaking of little kids.
Good night.
Say goodnight to your little Futaba and your
Good
little
night, guys.
Ryuji.
Hey, go. I will come check on you later. This is family life, guys.
He pushes his daughter away like I push Siri away. Siri, get off!
Go to bed. Love you too. Go to bed. So we're wasting plenty of time now. Let's try to think of who else. Sojiro I maxed out because he was actually kind of cool towards the end. I really appreciated his.
Oh yeah, he was surprisingly. I was convinced he was never going to come around, or I was never going to come around on him, and I did. I definitely did.
Yep. His abilities, whatever. Like the coffee thing was helpful, but I didn't do it that much. So
yeah.
And I'm gonna skip Anne because I think because it got covered a lot in your episode, Chris. So I think people should go back and listen to that if they want to talk about Anne and the controversy she had. I initially was like, oh, I'm romancing her. There's no option. I'm not romancing her because it seemed like, oh man, here's this stupid, dull, hot chick, and then it's like, oh, she's got this other side to her where she's like cares about her. She cares about what she wants to do in life, and she cares about her best friends and stuff like that. And then again, it's like, oh, I want to be a model and I don't try very hard. I should probably try hard. It's like, nah, all right, you're done. Don't care about you.
It's tough because she has those layers, but then after you unwrap the layers, some of them end up getting wrapped back up into the onion. And you're like, well, no, it's supposed to be about like emerging as this new person, not like coming to terms with the old person that you were.
Yeah.
But I liked it because I think that's a cool thing of like, sometimes like, you can, in finding yourself, it can still be like that job or that career arc that you were on before, but like you're doing it for the right reasons and you're doing it not because you're being forced to, but because you realize like you want to. And yeah, I liked it. She's no Makoto, but yeah, like exactly. I like her a lot.
She's a solid number 2. If Makoto was not an option in this, I would probably have gone for her.
I actually think I romanced Anne before So Makoto, you can get delayed for a long time if your charm isn't high.
Correct.
And I got stuck on Makoto for a long time.
See, I got stuck on Makoto in the opposite direction where I'm like, well, I need to max my charm. Better go max my charm.
Well, I mean, yeah, I did, but like I wasn't that close. It was probably one of my lowest stats at that point in the game. So like I was weeks away from getting what I needed for her.
Gotcha. Makoto is what can I say about her? Like, I loved her story arc of being like this nuisance, this, adversary in the beginning of the game. And then it turns into, man, I don't like how this principal is acting at all. Like, he's being really shady. Maybe I should go find out more on my own. Oh, these guys are actually trying to help. Oh, crap. Now we're mixed up with the mafia. Oh, wow. Now I love all you guys. Like, and her progression into being a nuisance, into being a valuable party member who is intelligent, witty, all of it. I loved it. Her story on like the leveling up story was meh, but I like that she branched out and made friends with someone she wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah, her 6 to 9, as we mentioned to you specifically, like as you were going into the stuff, is maybe one of the worst of the party, and that's a shame. And
Yeah.
yet she is still my number one because of the stuff you mentioned, because there's the dynamic with her sister as the whole I'm falling in with this mafia of sorts is going on. She knows how much pressure that's going to put on her, her academic stuff. She's smart, but throwing in with this group is maybe going to cost her a college opportunity. There's a lot of different things she's dealing with, and she handles it all with aplomb. Her persona's a motorcycle, so like that's pretty much a win.
She wears like a spiky leather suit. Like, I can't argue with this.
Yeah, everything's fine there. I like her voice actress.
Yep.
So like all of these things added up, and it was like, yeah, she's number one, and it's not super close. For me, An is also number two, maybe number three, but there's a gap, and that's despite the fact that I like An quite a bit. But it was Makoto, and it wasn't all that close for me.
Yep, exactly. I think I touched on everybody. I liked Hifumi's arc a little bit. I like the ability she gave you.
Yeah.
The shogi girl. But yeah.
If there was a number two that wasn't on, it's her. Primarily because, like I was telling you when you were up here playing for a bit, like that game is sort of like Yu-Gi-Oh! In the sense of like embellishing attacks and making everything sound dramatic and cool. So that was right up our alley.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty much all of them. I think I don't know if I mentioned much about the teacher, but like the idea of romancing her freaked me out to no end. It's like, you're like my age in real life, and my character's 16, so that's like a really big age gap, and you're my teacher.
Yeah,
but
she has some of the best abilities because she lets you use your knights, which is huge.
Yes, I didn't realize that till very late in the game when I actually looked up in a game guide, and I'm like, oh.
I realized like I need to really prioritize her and the fortune teller early to have any shot at getting everybody.
Persona 5 does a great job about not having a veil over things anymore. Like, you can see a lot of the things your personas will result in, and you can see what you get the next rank with your confidant, stuff like that. You still had no idea what you were going to end up with any of these characters, though. And I wish there was a way to do that. Even if it took some in-game investment, a way to do that where you didn't have to see a guide to be like, oh, is this worth investing 10 confidant levels into? Because I would have had no idea about that with her. Like, oh, she can do some tasks for me on the side. Okay, I guess. But then, like, that ability towards the end, you're like, oh, shit, that's really good. But I didn't spend time with her, so I never found that out.
Yeah, see, and why I wanted to do New Game Plus so bad was because I wouldn't have to worry about stats. Because that's the other thing is like, oh God, what stat do I need for at what point in the calendar for the exams or whatever else? So that's going to be stressful. And I think Dave is either frozen or very intrigued by what I'm saying right now.
Oh, he's
I'm
probably
leaning
frozen.
towards intrigued.
Oh no, I like your bet. Yeah, he's very surprised, contemplative. I don't think he's coming back.
Oh God.
Oh wait, it just caught up a little bit.
Oh hey,
His hands
Dave.
Folded. He's making the hashtag sign with his hands, his fingers. And
he's frozen. Up.
Okay, now he's on his side. We'll just keep describing this for both the viewers and the listeners until it seems like he's caught up.
This is the coronavirus difficulties.
I need to figure out what's going on with his internet. Because
it's the coronavirus.
It is broken. Okay, now he's standing up. I see more consistent movement.
Okay,
he's sitting back down.
Okay.
Now.
All right.
All
Great.
Right.
So, Dave, you cut out when I don't remember anymore.
The last thing I remember saying was basically I don't want to romance a 35-year-old or whatever she is. So
Essentially, yeah.
You don't have to romance her. You just take her to 10 and then kick her to the curb.
Yep. Well, at that point, I didn't realize it until it was much too late. And so we're talking about game guides and like not using those types
But
of
she
things.
was in her 20s. She was on 35.
She was worn down. She
like-
had like bags under her eyes.
She's
No
like
way.
25, which is, of course, severely old in Japan. Because if you're 30, you're an old man.
Dude, if I was a 16-year-old and I could romance a 25-year-old, I would have done it for sure.
Mm.
The problem is it's not just that, which is a little bit weird, but I think that's okay in the right context. It's also that she's your teacher and
Even
that she's
better.
dressing up as a maid and calling you master. And now you're starting to get into some somewhat strange
Giving
territory.
That's just
a
the-
lot of innuendo.
That's
really,
all the
just like,
cherry on top.
in your
Yeah,
end.
I'll do anything you ask me to do, master. Ooh.
Yeah, like you guys keep describing it, and to me, it keeps getting better. So,
Stop. I can only get so erect.
So I think that's all the confidants really to go through.
And in our truncated review, we have to move on.
Yeah.
Although there's one part of our review that you won't care about, but we'll get to that.
Okay.
All right, so palaces and mementos. This is going to be a little bit tougher for you just because you don't have a thing to compare this to, like in 4 for the palaces or 3 for mementos. But you can still talk about them on their own merits. So, what was your favorite palace? What was your least favorite palace? And what did you think about mementos?
Least favorite palace was probably Shido's at the end. Music was cool. The repetitiveness of it got me. Like, even if it didn't have the mice thing in it, which I actually didn't mind that much because I felt good when I solved the puzzles and like saw the way through the map and everything. But it's like, okay, I got this letter. Cool. I had to fight for this first letter. Okay, sometimes you got to fight. And then the second one, it's like, Anne got the letter in hand, and then she bitches them out and has to fight. It's like, but why though? Why did you do that?
Haru does the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. Haru does the same thing.
I have the letter, but you've impugned the honor of my father, therefore we must boss fight. And you're like, but we have the... I've been here for 4 hours.
See, I was okay with that because I'm like, oh, okay, they just want you to boss fight all of these, so that's okay.
Well, I'd just rather you cut the pretense at that point.
Yeah,
don't make me jump through the hoops. And I think that's the biggest problem is, like, I hated the mouse puzzles more than you probably did. But in general, I agree in the sense that it's all just repetitive. Like, it all adds up, and you're like, okay, this section is too long and not interesting enough. And if you had trimmed one side or the other back a bit, it might have been enough. Thematically, it's cool. I love the idea of everybody hopping aboard Shido's ship and you're running around and screwing that plan up. But conceptually, didn't exactly match execution.
Yep. My favorite one, honestly, would be Kamoshida's Palace, the first one.
Same, Dave. Hell yeah.
The idea, and a little bit of it is the initial shock of like, why is there a castle here? And then you like unravel these pieces of like what it actually is. And it's kind of really fucked up in the sense of how perverted he is. And it just opens this whole thing, which sucks you into the game so well. And later on, when I started doing some of the later palaces, I'm like, okay, I understand the procedure of the days. I understand like the idea of, all right, if I can finish this palace in one day, then I don't have to worry about wasting time on combats. In the beginning, I'm like, uh-oh, I'm low on SP. I got to leave, come back. It took me like 3 or 4 days entering that palace to beat it because I didn't really understand the game mechanics. And it was that learning experience, which I loved so much.
Yeah, the thing is, it's not fair because, like you said, there's so much with that first experience. I also think it's one of the best designed. I think it's one of the most built up to. I think it's really dynamic and clever. There are some others that compete with it, but for like the experience of like me feeling like enthralled going through it, it's still Kamoshida's Palace.
And it helps that he's such an unrepentant asshole.
Oh,
yeah, well, I wanted to say, I feel like there was around the same time, and I hope I'm not making this up, there was that U.S. Olympic coach or medical
doctor,
trainer. Yeah. And so, like, I have, like, a manifestation there. It makes me hate him even more, and it's, like, so topical, and, definitely all contributed to that.
Yeah, so I'd say that was probably my favorite one overall. I liked the vault one, the Yash, the bank one, which I can't remember the guy's name. It's I like that one for some of the puzzle solving aspect of like unlocking the vault and stuff like that. The cipher, the number to letter cipher was too stupidly easy. It's like, oh no, what are we gonna do to figure this out? I don't know, write it down. Like,
yeah, I know. They keep having to like bring it up. Hey, that's like your third clue. You got all that together? It's like, yeah, it's 3 clues. Like, I can remember 3 numbers. I'm not a fucking toddler.
Like, give me a piece of paper and I've got it all right here in front of me. Like, this is really easy.
Yeah.
So, but overall, I still like that one. Futaba's dungeon was okay in the sense of it was kind of weird. Like, you have one giant hallway that you're running down. You have to unlock each part. So I didn't even really need to use the fast travel in it if you're coming back to it because it's kind of like, I'll just run down this hallway. No one's going to attack me anyway. So
yeah, I like that, though. I think that's clever. Dark Souls and Neo do that a lot, where it's like you spend half a day going through the level and then you unlock a thing that's like right next to where you started, little shortcuts. Thematically, I like that one a lot. I remember overall not totally loving it, but I thought it did a lot of work for her character. And you won't know this, Dave, but it's the most dungeon that's in line. It's a dungeon most in line with like Persona 4, which is all about like each dungeon is one of your party members' constructions or whatever.
Gotcha. Working through their issues and stuff like that. Yeah. It's the only one in this game that's like that. What about Sai's Palace?
Oh, I did love Sai's Palace. All right.
That one's my favorite. Although I'm with you guys on Kamoshida, it's probably my number 2. I think Sai is still my number 1.
Which one was that one?
That's the one you start the game in and
casino.
then come back to the casino.
Oh yeah, that one's good.
It was really fun when I kind of like saw some glimpses of the of that palace. I'm like, oh, I see where this is going. I remember this from the beginning of the game. This is it. Like shit is about to go down. So it was cool seeing that. I liked Akechi as far as a party member. Like I thought it was like, man, I'm glad I get to keep this guy. Little did I know what was coming, but I'm glad I finally get to keep this guy. Now I've got all the different spells covered. I don't have to like make sure that my guy has the curse and bless spells because I got this guy over here that'll take care of it. And then all of a sudden like, oh, well, never mind then. You're gone.
Oh, bye-bye.
Yeah. So, and then Akamura's Palace was okay for some of the air duct, like the air vent thing, but it's kind of crazy. I'm like, I am flying through space and not breathing air for a long period of time.
I
and I'm
didn't
not
really
okay with
like
this.
that one either.
Yeah, it's low on my list.
Yeah, it was okay. The introduction to it with Haru, like Morgana and Haru going in by themselves was like, okay, please, can you just drop this? Like, I don't need this.
I was the least invested in that palace, and part of it's
Yeah.
just because Haru was introduced so late that it's tough to care about her or her father a ton before that point, and it goes a long way in building Haru's character, but I'm just like, why am I doing all this here?
And it actually fits thematically because your strings were being pulled anyway to go in that palace, period. So it was
Kaneshiro is the name of the mobster.
Kaneshiro, yes.
Because it's similar to Kamoshida, it just clicked in my head. But I remember
Yes.
hating Madarame, too. Like,
Yeah,
the early guys are really easy to hate, so I go in there and I was like, yeah, I'm going to kick these guys' ass. And I go into this one, I'm like, okay, this guy's a tool, but...
Yeah, there wasn't enough build-up. Exactly. It was kind of rushed at that part.
And then Shido, I'm like, yeah, like, fuck Shido. Like, this whole game has been building towards this. So, yeah, I hate this guy, too. But there's that one right before it with him where you're like,
Yeah. As far as mementos go, for the most part, I felt like mementos was kind of a chore more than anything.
It kind of is.
But part of the reason for that, and I don't want to cut you off, but like part of the reason for that, I think, was because Mishima assigning stuff seemed so arbitrary to me. Like the idea that we're going in to change these people's hearts and we're going into these palaces and stuff to change people who really deserve it. And then there's this thing on the side called mementos where basically Mishima sends us a note and said, hey, this guy hurt his girlfriend once. It's like, all right, well, change his heart. It's like, really? Like that seems like a waste of our time and like what we stand for.
You would, I think, have liked it a little more if you had actually needed it, but you were, sounds like I'm building towards an insult. My point is, by playing on easy, you didn't really find as much worth going through mementos, whereas like when I went through it, I needed it and I like valued it because it allowed me to kind of get more powerful, and it really helped out. So there's a big difference for me. Story-wise, I mean... I was okay with it. Like these are smaller sort of egos, and so it's quicker. Yeah.
No, and I get that, and I actually kind of like that idea, but I guess it was just the method in which I went in. Like I didn't encounter these people. It was just like my random dude that figured out that where the Phantom Thieves tells us to go, so we go. It's like we have no discretion on this whatsoever. I don't know.
And the other ones are all blocking your confidant progress.
Yeah, exactly.
At the 7.5 mark, you have to basically go in and fix something so you can get to 8, which means you have to reserve a different day just to make sure you can advance your confidant later, which I didn't love. By the late point of the game, you have enough time to do it, so it's not like it's a bad thing, but I still didn't love it.
Yeah. And then, I mean, obviously Mementos leads into this game escalating greatly as far as the stakes go, where it's like, man, we want to change some people around. We're going to reform society. Oh my God, there's a God who's going to ruin humanity. Holy shit.
So what did you think about the story? We're running low on time.
Yeah.
That kind of leads into the plot. Well, what did you think?
I've said it before on the show, I don't like when stories go immediately for the entire world is at stake. Everyone's going to die if we don't succeed type of thing. But when it ramps up to it a little bit and it gives that like we're on a really small level and then it kind of builds slowly up to this, oh man, there's a big threat we have to take out. I can appreciate that type of thing. I think they introduced the God character a little bit way too hard at the end. Like, oh my God, there's this thing now. And I had no idea going in. I thought that was a little bit too rushed. I thought they could have done a better job building it up. But overall, I mean, the story is fantastic of just this idea that you can change people's minds and hearts through your actions. And having this whole new idea of the cognitive world, it was a fantastic thing once I kind of wrapped my head around it.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I didn't need it to be end of the world. I was okay that it was, but I felt like you could still get all the twists. And I mean, my favorite thing is like when you're talking to, I don't even remember, the weird voice guy.
Igor?
Yeah, and he's like, so you just want to like give up, right? And you're like, no. And then it like, I love that. I love stuff like that. And he's never really been like a villain before either. I don't think. So this was kind of big for the overall Persona canon as well, but it worked really well in this game too.
Yeah. And as far as the plot goes, the plot twist with Akechi, I didn't see it coming. I didn't read any spoilers. It blew my mind when I saw it happen. I'm like, what did I screw up? Like, how did I mess this up? Like, how are we going to get out of this? You can't pull like a chrono trigger where my main character dies and then I go bring him back to life somehow. Like, it doesn't work that way in this game. So having that twist in the middle with Akechi being such a choir boy type of figure to this awful, horrible, evil person, I thought was a fantastic twist.
I like that it basically sways on a pendulum multiple times, because it seems like he's going to be an antagonist. At the very beginning, he's like, yeah, the Phantom Thieves shouldn't be allowed to do what they want. That's stupid. There's laws for a reason. You're like, I see you, kid. And then eventually he's like, actually, they're doing some good things. There's a lot of bad people out there. I support what they're doing. And you're like, okay, that's weird, but all right. And now he's like, actually, I'm going to shoot you in the head in an interrogation room. You're like, oh, okay. Well, you just joined the party a minute ago, but all right. So he's all over the place. And then you kind of feel sympathetic for him by the end.
Yeah. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, a little bit in the sense, I thought it was kind of shoehorned in. It's like, Shido's my father. It's like,
yeah,
really?
That's a little much.
I was okay with it, though.
Yeah.
It's just being the reason why he was sent in there and why he's, manipulated and what's responsible for his stance. So, yeah, it was a little forced, but I was okay with it. It was not the Emperor is Ray's father. It was a lot better than that for me.
Fair. That's a way better. And it's not as shoehorned in as that was.
Yeah.
It's tough for me because I like when JRPGs make this really elaborate, interconnected world with a bunch of characters that matter, and then they have these past and future relationships that like weave together. That's great, but it does end up bordering on almost like too coincidental if you go too far with it, and I have a hard time reconciling that. Because I like it overall, but then I'm like, when you take a step back and you think about the fact that he's the father of this guy who's going to be our primary antagonist, and he shoved us in an alley in a random incident 6 months ago, and now we're all in this like fighting to the death now. It's like, okay. Yeah. I'm going along with it because I like it, but I'm also kind of like,
That's the thing at the end of the day, is if you like it, you can kind of look the other way. If it sucks, you're like, why?
I won't spoil anything, and this doesn't matter to Dave because he's not going to play the Trails games, but Trails 3 is getting to the point where it's like, oh, every single person Rena's ever met is somehow integral to the entire country and what's going on inside of it. And you're like, it's cool because you've earned it. You've built all this stuff over 3 games, but at the same time, I'm like, yeah, every single person I've met is paramount to the world. There's no throwaways, no cast-asides.
That is something I did like about some of the characters in here. It's like, yeah, the little gun kid just wanted to be better at his game and like had a story arc in it, but it was like he's not really affecting whether I'm going to succeed or not. Like it's not like he came out of Mementos and shot the god figure in the head at the very end. It's like, oh man, I'm sure glad I met you.
Yeah. Thanks, Get Smoked.
So, what else can I say about it? I mean, gameplay.
I want to actually hear your thoughts on this.
I am a sucker for turn-based RPGs. I love them. I hate that the remake of Final Fantasy VII is going away from that because I love turn-based RPGs. The reason Final Fantasy X is my favorite Final Fantasy is because of its specific style of turn-based play. I could play most any game that is a turn-based RPG like that. I love them. Yeah. So that going through that metric, as soon as I saw that in the game, I'm like, well, all right, I'm hooked.
And it's a great approach too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like 10, one of the best things about 10 is that it's a quick system, especially the more you get familiar with it. You can swap in allies and affect turn order and all that jazz. Mm-hmm. This is kind of like that with the once mores and the baton passes and stuff, where once you get to click, you can just be like flying through battles. Like, all right, you hit them, knock them down. All right, cool. Switch to this person, knock them down. All on attack. Okay, next fight. And like, there's get to this rhythm of it, and it goes really quick. And it shows you that turn-based doesn't have to be slow and plodding and boring. It can be an active turn-based system, to steal the term from Seven. Like it can be exciting and turn-based. They are not mutually exclusive.
No. I love the fact that a very minor program I think they did was when you had the all-out attack opportunity, like when you knocked everybody down, you could just hit the triangle button immediately and not even bring up the menu and do the all-out attack.
Yep.
Very minor thing, but huge as far as time saving goes.
Yeah.
They have a few different shortcuts like that. Just like, eventually you can start finding weaknesses. Once you start having a lot of coverage, you can just hit a button and it's like, all right, here's a thing you've already hit this guy with in the past. So we're just going to load it up for you now. So attack him. You're like, cool, exactly. Thanks. I don't have to go digging for a spell or finding which persona has it. Just hit him.
And it helps that it has the slickest UI like in video game history. So
yeah. It was the colors were great. The menus were easy to navigate overall. The designs on the personas. I know this is probably stuff that has happened before in previous games, but man, like some of them were out like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like the demon shitting on the toilet is like, who thought up this one? Or the demon dick guy where it's like, man, that horn is longer than his entire body coming out of his midsection. That's weird. But then there's some beautiful ones, just like the Horus, the kind of phoenix looking glowing bird type of thing. Some of the, just many of the personas had great designs, and I don't even know how many, hundreds, if not 1,000.
I know maybe it's not as creative as I give it credit for, but I love how it taps into like the collective unconscious, and it gives it the excuse to pull from like every mythology, culture, and things like that.
Greek.
It's awesome. Yeah.
Roman.
Yeah.
All sorts of stuff.
Indian. Yeah. It's Egyptian.
Yeah. Egyptian's big.
Yeah.
Yep. So, I mean, overall, I don't know if I guess we're ready to wrap it up at this point, but man, I can't imagine a game that I've been that invested in a long time.
I know. You finish it and you're like, oh, you're kind of disappointed even though you spent 100 hours on it.
I'm kind of mad that it's over in the sense of like, I guess I could try to play some in New Game Plus and it's just not going to be there. The experience isn't going to be there. The desire isn't going to be there. So it's a game that I played. I had too many nights where I stayed up way too late playing this game. I'm like, I'm going to go to bed, and 2 hours later, I'm still playing this damn thing. My wife liked watching it with me for the most part. Like, I wish I could convince her to sit down and play it, and I'll be her guide, but it's just too long to invest that type of thing in there. So, I mean, overall, I can't think of a game that I could rate much higher than this one.
So honestly. A 10.
I don't give out 10s easily. I think 10 is reserved for... I can't, like, top 5 all time. I want to go play this game again right now type of game. And the only ones that have really made me feel that way, I think, were the first Knights of the Old Republic and this one. So
I was going to ask if it's higher than Final Fantasy X, if you can even decide between the two.
It's a tough one. This one would be higher than Final Fantasy X for better story. Because Final Fantasy X's story falls apart when you really break it down. Like the story, it's like, this is a lot of problems in it. Now this one, obviously, Persona 5 has its own problems, obviously story-wise too, but still, like they're not as glaring for sure. So, I mean, I would probably have this is absolutely a top 3 game for me of all time. In my rankings.
So, Dave, you've played 3 pretty big games recently: God of War, Breath of the Wild. Mario Odyssey, we could even say, so 4, and then Persona 5. What was your favorite? Actually, just rank them all.
I mean, out of those 4, I would probably go Persona 5, God of War, Zelda, and then Mario Odyssey, in that order. So,
which is unfortunate because like those are all like some of the best games ever made. It's like Mario coming in 4th place. It's like but it's like maybe one of the best 3D Marios ever created.
Yeah, and I never had a Nintendo 64 as a kid, so I don't have the nostalgia factor of Mario 64 playing into me, so that might affect it a little bit. I have much more nostalgia for Zelda than anything else, so that might play into it a little bit. But
so now we just got to work on your next recommendation here.
Yeah.
Huh. I was just thinking about that about 15 seconds ago, but I haven't actually come up with what my answer is.
I'm thinking of Red Dead Redemption.
We talked about that.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, honestly, it feels weird that I could continue talking about this game for another hour and not have a problem talking about it for another hour at all. I didn't even get to the music. Okay. Last story I'll tell before we go. I went back to work starting yesterday from my parental leave, and I've been working from home. So in the background, I have the 10-hour version of Behind the Mask instrumental just playing in the background all day. My wife walked in and was like, "Are you watching a video game video now?" And I'm like, "Nope, just listen to the music." Like all I'm doing is just listen to the music as background because it doesn't get old. Like
This
the
is
music
exciting
is
for
so
me.
good.
As the guy who forced Chrono Trigger's soundtrack on you in high school and made CDs out of it by burning them illegally.
And then handing them to me like, "Listen to this."
Put them in the car sometimes on the way to school. Usually we actually listen to music and not that, but sometimes I tricked you. And you liked the music from that game.
Mm-hmm.
But so to hear it, to see that pay off now, like 20 years later, is nice.
I've advanced musically a lot in my tastes and my talents, I think, in the last 20 years.
Look how much you've invested in Dave. And now he's finally reaping dividends.
Yep, it only took a few gray hairs on both of our sides.
Yeah, just a couple of decades. Certainly a worthwhile investment.
But yeah, the whole music in that game, I could listen to that soundtrack easily and be totally fine with it.
The problem for your next thing, Dave, is I want to recommend Red Dead 2.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm worried about it. And the thing about Red Dead 1 is it's pretty short. So you're not going to lose that much if you end up not loving it. And you very well might love it completely. So you like Grand Theft Auto, right? Like a lot?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
You'll probably like 1.
I'll probably like it, yeah.
And your only chance of really loving 1 is if you play it first. I don't think if you play 2 first and you go back to 1, you'll ever love it. You might like it.
That's true.
But I think it'll be in addition to the story kind of feeling antiquated, the shooting is definitely going to, because it's very GTA 4-esque, except with horses in the West.
The gameplay, even the writing, you're like, oh, I miss the nuance of 2 that I didn't even maybe realize was happening while it was there. But now I'm going back to 1, and I want it again. So I won't say much more than that, because I want you to like 1. Mm-hmm. But anyways.
I'll get to it sometime. Now that I'm back at work, my time for video games is shorter, but you know.
Yeah, but you're at home, so you'll have some time.
Yep.
Better work on that next kid.
Yep. Nope. Never going to happen again.
Well, we'll see about that. Well, that's the end of this episode. We'll talk about Persona 5 again in a few weeks. So please be excited for that.
Yeah, we'll be able to walk Dave through the changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can pitch them to you. You can still talk to them, even though you haven't experienced them. You'll be like, oh, that sounds like an upgrade over what I did, or that sounds terrible.
I can at least read about it at that point, so I can speak to it.
Because, I mean, Royal comes out, like we mentioned, in less than a week from when the episode airs. But then again, it's also going to take us 100 hours to beat. So it'll be like probably May before we actually get to that. But, you know. And then we'll have to review it a 5th time for some unknown reason. We'll figure it out. Yep. All right, that's the end of this episode. In between shows, you can find us on our website, objectionnetwork.com, on social media at Team Objection, on youtube.com/objectionnetwork, or send emails to the show to objectionnetwork@gmail.com. See you next time.
Bye.
Remember, 2 weeks.